Good afternoon, everybody. So today you all have come here to celebrate the Vesak, and then to listen to a Dhamma talk and involving some Dhamma discussions to know more about the Buddha, his life, and also some of the teachings that he taught us in his 45 years being a Buddha. That's why you come here. So I was thinking that some of you have already observed 8 precepts, right? How many of you have observed 8 precepts? It's 1, 2.
This morning?
Yeah, this morning. 8 precepts. Few of you have already observed 8 precepts. That doesn't matter. So I was just like wondering, how is the audience like? Then I can better get a sense of how I should focus my talk. So, and I see there are a lot of like different age groups here, like small, kids, and then university students, some young adults and seniors. So how can I focus my talk? It's such a very, different thing. But I can talk about something that is relevant to Vesak Day. So today I was wondering to talk to you about the Buddha's life and what kind of lessons we can learn from his life. Because you're pretty much listening to his teachings, right? Most of them are theories. The Buddha had taught this, and Buddha taught this to somebody, and he preached this. But why not we look at his life, how he coped up with his, audiences, and then how he, responded to some situations, and what we can learn from such, narratives. That would be better, I think, on a day that we celebrate his birthday and his awakening and his passing. Okay? So, what if I ask you any good lesson that you have learned so far from his life? What would be your answer?
Patience.
Patience? Okay, that's the big one, right? And then?
Have to be equal with health, then you will be healthy.
Okay, it's pretty much about the patience, tolerance, and then generosity. What else? Probably I would a little bit talk about that, virtue of the Buddha, and then how we can apply that to ourselves, right? You might probably have not heard and seen some of the situations where Buddha was blamed by people. Some Brahmins, like in India, this caste problem is very much prevalent. So some of the Brahmins, they approached the Buddha to blame, insult him actually. Now, this story is a very good story in which he handled such a Brahmin. One Brahmin, he approached the Buddha and then he started insulting him, name calling, and then pointing out one of his services and some monks and how he was giving his services and the contemporary society. So he was like quoting all these things and then using his, insulting to him. So he started insulting, but the Buddha did not say any single word. He remained silent. After some time, after he done with his insult, and then Buddha asked him, the Brahmin, are you done with your, whatever the insult thing? The Brahmins are really honest, truthful. They don't say lies, but they get angry about religious peers, who are against their faith system. Because Brahmins believe in the Mahabrahma. There's only one God, he gives everything. Whatever your karmas are based on his will and mighty and all these things. So they didn't like somebody is talking about something, using that karma and all these theories beyond his control, right? So this Brahmin said, yes, I'm done with my, speech or whatever. And then Buddha asked few questions. This is how he handled that anger. The first question he asked from the Brahmin was that, the Brahmin, do visitors come to your house? And he said, I'm a very hospitable man. I really, treat visitors, those who come to my house. I treat them with sweets and all the other food. So he was like very, positive about that question. And he said, yes, a lot of visitors, show up in my house for different reasons. And then Buddha went on to ask the second question. So how do you treat them? He said the same thing, with sweets, confectionaries and all the food. Okay. And then Buddha asked, what if those visitors or somebody might say to you that we already had our breakfast, lunch or brunch or whatever, dinner. So what are you going to do with those foods that you planning to offer to them? Doesn't matter because we're going to have them when they leave house. Or we keep them for future use. And then Buddha said, okay, that's very good. And now you gave me a nice treat. So inside was a treat, but I don't want to actually accept that treat. So please take it back. See how wonderfully how patiently he handled someone's anger. Rather not saying that, oh, I'm the Buddha, you should listen to me, I know everything, I'm omniscient. He was not going to that extent. He was really, really patient and then down to earth person. That was one simple story that we can learn how he practiced tolerance, not how he talked about tolerance. Now we only talk about how he talked and what he talked about tolerance and whatever the things, and then we're trying to apply that to ourselves, which is really difficult time to time. The ways that he managed that anger, he talked, because he talked to people in the 6th BCE, which is a very highly, non-secular society at that time, not like today's. Today's world is very secular, right? People are very secular. People are mostly into the secular versions of, virtues as well. So, by looking at how he handled by himself with somebody who insulted him, it's a good thing, I guess, for us to learn on this kind of thing. Patience. And there were a number of occasions that he handled such people. Now this is one thing, and now see, he was happy about whatever the things he was having. Like you might probably hear that, probably have learned that in some periods of his life he was not not enjoying, I would say, he was not receiving food as usual. But he managed to handle such time periods by thinking that this is what, because now there's a good point that a lot of people think like when somebody became the Buddha, he gets all the things. But to my understanding, Buddha makes some mistakes as well. This is a very contradictory statement I make, but I mean you have to take it in a very, in a very good understanding. Now, for example, what we know today's world is that mistakes are good teachers. Not only where we failed, right? They are really good teachers. Now, for example, now he ordained small kids like this. I don't know how old are these kids, probably 7 years old or above. He ordained few of them, and then parents blame him. You should not ordain these kids without the permission of their parents. And then I accept your request. Now from today onwards, I won't ordain these kids without their parents' permission. So what happened? It's a mistake. It was a mistake. So, I mean, when you look at the Buddha's life, I think we should all look at his life in a pretty normal way, not as an individual who was really, really abnormal. Now, see the Buddha statues. Look at the Buddha statues. Now, now what you see in a Buddha statue is completely an art. Did Buddha always show his aura? According to the text, no. Sometimes I know some of the devotees, most of the devotees, they were really misunderstood, about the Buddha, right? Once there was a monk called Venerable Mahakāśyapa. He was an arahant. He used to go to a house. There's one lady, she was offering food to Venerable Mahakāśyapa by giving him kind of a very relationship as a mother. And Venerable Mahakāśyapa and the Buddha were kind of identical. You can't separate out their features. Like most people think, they don't see a difference between the Buddha and Venerable Mahakāśyapa. But some of the commentaries say there was a difference in terms of the height of the Buddha and Venerable Mahakāśyapa. So what happened was, one day, Buddha went to this house on his way for Pindapata. And that lady, she offered all the food into his bowl. And in a few minutes, she could see that the monk that he was always familiar with coming on the way. Now she didn't know that the previous one was the Buddha, and then what happened was, she instantly thought, I should go fast to catch him and then ask him to take back the food. And then she ran to that Buddha. She didn't know this is Buddha. And this is the funny thing actually. People didn't know that Buddha was a different man with aura and all these things. And then Buddha turned back and then asked, what's up? And then she said that I was not expecting you. I was expecting this monk who's on the way. I want to take your food out. And then Buddha gave the bowl. She took all the food and then offered to Venerable Mahakāśyapa. And Venerable Mahakāśyapa looked up and then he saw that she took all the food from the Buddha's bowl. Which means he was not a person in his looks that somebody can say this is the Buddha and all the others are other monks. But what happened with the statue was that when the statue culture came up in India, Gandhara and Mathura, they sculptured the Buddha statues based on the Greek goddesses. And that's how the aura and all these came up. I mean, that's okay. But the problem is, if you're gonna actually visualize the Buddha based on the statues, you probably get wrong. So that's one thing. So Buddha was a very normal human being. So now, going back to the mistakes. Now he made a mistake about ordaining these kids without their parents' permission. That was one mistake. And then and the disciplinary rules that were laid out to the monks, and all were laid out after some time at the request of people. But if he was really looking at the problems coming up with his knowledge or whatever, but these things happen. I'm not challenging his knowledge, but I'm going to say that if people think that he was like very omniscient in the sense of the the socio-structural things of the society. That wasn't. And he really wanted to get into that when things happen. So the thing that we have to learn from him is that mistakes happen. Let's make them good teachers. So if Buddha made such, then what about us? But we are not going to make mistakes deliberately. We're trying to limit them. But these things can happen. I mean, mistakes are not like, you're going to steal somebody's thing, you can actually hurt someone like that. But I mean, there could be some mistakes for different reasons. Okay? So, patience and how he handled anger, that story is one of the things. And then, mistakes. We could learn from his character, life. And then, we could certainly, learn from that and then apply that to ourselves. What about the 6 years that he spent time being on to Dushkar Kriya? How many of you know that how he made himself to being the Buddha, Samma Sambuddha? So in which age did he leave the house? I would ask from these kids. So he married to Prince Yasodhara when he was 16 years old, right? And then? And he became the Buddha when he was 35 years old. And then when he left his house? 29. See how mathematically correct are you? I mean, numbers don't matter, but I mean, just to get a sense of how things happen. So, I mean, he left house when he was 29 years old, and then he took 6 years to do all these things, and he became the Buddha when he was 35 years old. What happened between the time he left the house and he became the Buddha? Why it was such 6 years if he was the real omniscient person who was like taking all these things from the previous life? Why he took 6 years of time? What happened? It's a good question, right? Why he took such a long time, 6 years of time? Maybe probably he could have actually used that for people, as being the Buddha. But he took 6 years of time. There is a misconstrued version of how things happened when he left the house. I will tell you that first and then ask this question. The first thing that the biography of the Buddha, which was prepared by many scholars, made a mistake. That mistake was to say Prince Siddhartha left the house without letting his family know. How many of you know that? Have you heard that thing? He left the house on the day his son was born, and his wife was cuddling this son, and he was not giving any single sign that he is leaving. He just opened the door a little bit and then closed the door and he left. How nice is he, right? Being a good father. That was what we learned from the books back in Sri Lanka. But in the sources, like the original early Buddhist text, we find that it wasn't the thing happened with his leaving. What happened was, he left the house at the time when his relatives were crying over his departure. Then what happened to the later reformed versions of his biography and the original text? Something has happened there. Probably the scholars who prepared the life of the Buddha for the school text, they have missed that part. They may have missed that part for some reasons. Probably that is in Pali and English. Because in Sri Lanka, you probably might have known the Jataka stories. In Sri Lanka, the Jataka stories of the Buddha are very well known. Everyone knows about it. Actually, when somebody passes away, in that time, people they recite one of the Jataka stories. So it was very well connected to people's lives when they practiced Buddhism. So in the Jataka text, there's a commentary. That commentary has a life of the Buddha. In that, this problem can be seen. In that you can see that he left the house without letting his relatives know. That was what the scholars took for the school text. They took from a very post-canonical work rather going to an early Buddhist text. So we have to go back to the early Buddhist text to see. I'm not saying early Buddhist texts are 100% correct, but to get a sense of what really happened, it's good to see how things were written actually, how things were handled in that time. So then he left the house when he was 29 years old, and then what happened? Then he approached few teachers. The one was the Bhargava, and he didn't get any of the spiritual attainments from that guy. He left him, and then he approached another guy called Alarakala. He was a well-known teacher at that time, but he has developed his spiritual attainments as far as I think the seventh dhyana absorption. We call it as I think Akincanya, probably the attainment of nothingness, Akincanya. And then Prince Siddhartha didn't take that, ascetic Siddhartha didn't take that much of time to attain that. It was a simple thing for him. And then he finished that, he attained that, and then he wanted to leave. And teacher Alarakala said, please don't go away. We can spare the disciples and we'll do something here. And he said, no, that's not my purpose. I want to really see the sublime truth that I've been looking for. Thank you for your knowledge. And he kindly declined that request, and then he left. And then now, if you know about the dhyana, absorptions are not Buddhist actually. They were there before the Buddha's time. Right? The 8 absorptions, they were there before the Rupavachara, Arupavachara dhyanas, they were before the Buddha's time. But the 9th one was the Buddhist one, the Sanya Vedata Nirodha. It was a very complete negation. So then he approached another guy called Uddaka. Have you heard about his name? Okay. And under him, he studied about Neva Sanya, Na Sanya. So the attainment of neither perception, Sanya Vedayata, and how do you call that? Sanya Vedayata Nirodha. Sorry, Neva Sanya, Na Sanyayata. Neither perception nor perception, right? It's like it's a chaotic thing, but he also attained that stage. Prince ascetic Siddhartha attained that stage too, and the same request was given by Uddaka, and then ascetic Siddhartha said, no, I want to go on. He left him too, and then he found another group of people. Now he knew that my spiritual journey was not successful, but I'm halfway of that. And then who he met with after that, after Uddaka, he called them 5 ascetics. 5 ascetics, right? Kondanya, Vappa, Badhya, Mahana, Ascetics. So these were very fundamental ascetics. Their fundamental perception to be awakened was to use very harsh practices to the body. And then they thought that could lead them to be awakened. Right? And then ascetic Siddhartha, he also thought this would be one of the good ways to do. And he spent 6 years of time. Probably that, now when you count that 29 to 35 years, probably he attained the 7th and 8th spiritual attainment way faster than meeting these guys. And then what happened? It took 6 years of time. Did he achieve anything out of that? No. Why he made that big mistake for 6 years? That was the thing. I mean, I'm not saying it was a huge failure, but he was a normal human being. He wanted to experience what is going with this austere practice. And then he came to know by himself, this is not working for me. And then he started eating a bit. And then he found like self-mortification, torturing the body. Some people do that even now, right? When something wrong, they just remind themselves, I made a mistake. They're torturing themselves. The physical torturing is not allowed, mental torturing as well in Buddha, right? And then he thought that neither self-mortification or self-indulgence would not make me comfortable to understand awakening, the Buddha. Right? Now see the people living with us and ourselves too. Like for the most of the time of our life, either we are going to torturing ourselves or we're going to indulge a lot in our life. But Buddha said, no. He understood, ascetic Siddhartha understood that that wasn't the way. The best way is to go in moderation. It's not like torturing or indulgence. Right? And then he found the Eightfold Noble Path. Right? I mean, after all these enterprising things, he found the Eightfold Noble Path. In the Eightfold Noble Path, we have to be very careful because the good things come in wrong forms. Now see the 8. How many of you know the 8 parts of the Eight Noble Path? What are the 8 noble, components in the path that Buddha taught us to practice if you want to be awakened? Sammaditthi, Samma Sankappa, Samma Vacha, Samma Kammanta, Samma Ajiva, Samma Vayama, Samma Sati, Samma Samadhi. If you don't know them, it's really a good thing to learn actually, because that was his path to become awakened. Now before going to talk about these 8 and the path which has 8, I would like to draw your attention to something. Now a lot of people use enlightenment for whatever the things Buddha achieved in his life, being the Buddha. But I think enlightenment is a philosophical term in the philosophy. People can enlighten you. Language is not always real to understand the abstruse, profound teachings in the world. Now, nowadays, scholars and such educated people who know the Buddha logic, the Buddha's life, they use a different term called awakening. So awaken from whatever the defilements and all these things. Let's put it as awakening, right? So to be awakened, he practiced the Eightfold Noble Path and then asked the followers to think about it, look at it, seriously concerning, and then if that appears good to you, go for it. Right? There's no any forceful request for us. Right? What is Sammaditthi? Right view. So right view depends on different things, right? Right and wrong, they are usually different taken by people, different cultures, countries. But here, he was talking about the skillful action, unskillful actions, right? There are 10 skillful actions. Samma Sankappa, right thoughts that are actually not of violence, and then killing, and then letting go. So those are the thoughts that he asks us to practice for the second one. Samma vacha is about the words. Our words should be, void of few things, lying, slandering, and then abusive speeches, and then frivolous talk, right? Samma kammanta, they were basically the actions that we make, stealing, killing, and sensual, misbehaving. Buddha says you can behave well in your sensual pleasures but not misbehave, right? And then samma ajiva, right living. Right living is mostly about not cheating other people, swindling and all these things. It's a lot, but I'm just like, I'm kind of like making it more concise according to time. And then samma vayama is the effort. How you can make effort for your actions. He asks us to do, improve the good actions that we already have, and then reduce the bad actions that we've been having so far. And then if you find there is something not good for you that you don't already have, don't try to do it, and to have effort for that. And the last one was, if you think your friends and your people you know in societies, they do good things that you feel like that is good to you, and you want to practice that too, right? So you could, try to do it if it makes sensible to you. So that is samma vayama. And samma sati is the right attention. Now the mindfulness and attention, they have been really, complex terms at this point, right? So sati is the attention, not the mindfulness. Right? So lack of the mindfulness and over mindfulness, they are really bad things, right? Have you seen people who are really over mindful? Have you seen them? You seen them? What is being over mindful? Can I ask this from somebody here? What is being over mindful? I think probably you might have never thought about this one, because people always say be mindful, be mindful. What is being over mindful? Is it a good question for anybody?
Is it anxiety?
Anxiety. Is it being over mindful? Which means like is it a kind of a development of your mindfulness practice? You getting up to any anxiety, in that process? Okay.
Being omniscient.
Huh?
Omniscient.
Omniscience? Wow.
Knowing all.
How have you taken omniscience to say that there's something identical with the all-mindful thing?
Being mindful is a local term, isn't it?
It's a local term.
Like seeing things in the
As
environment.
Okay.
And being over-mindful is...
Means you can see everything without boundaries. Okay. I'll get to that. What is that?
So all mindful, like just having a single mind, right? Like not...
that's single mind is the concentration. That's the second part, right? I'm asking, have you, ever seen, have you ever, perceived something like a difference between lack of mindfulness and over mindfulness?
Not mindfulness is a good pulling it out. Like,
You think that you think it should be a good thing, right? Because okay. To me, I guess every good thing should have a limit. Every good thing should have a limit. What about the bad thing? They must have a limit too, right? So, to me, when you are over mindful, you are overreacting to things. It's like when you take some medications that could desensitize your immune system, then you laugh at the time that you are not supposed to laugh, you smile at the time you are not supposed to smile, you do things that you are not supposed to do such things at that time. You don't know how to draw the line between your normal sensory things and abnormal actions that could come, without your will system, willpower, whatever. So lack of mindfulness is a problem, right? We all need to be mindful. I think I would rather use sati being attentive, attention, right? We really want to be attentive. Some people use that we need to be thoughtful actually about things. When our thoughts are not working, we feel like we are in a blank stage, so we might not know what to do. So we should have the attention. The goal of sati is the next one, called the samadhi, concentration. Use the attention to samadhi. Now people only take this as a very standalone practice. That is what I see in the world now. Right? It's the same thing. What happened to yoga? What happened to yoga? What happened to mindfulness? In the Western world, which is not used in whatever the practitioners back in the original parts of the world. How is the yoga being used in other parts of the world is not used by the people who really want to practice that back in their origins. Now yoga is not like only looking at your different circles of your body, pressure zones of your body, right? It's something that takes you to kind of a composure about in Hinduism, it comes from Hinduism, about the Mahabharata. So they strip out such things and they use their own version, making it a big business now across the world. I mean, of course it's good to do yoga, but I mean, it's not how it was supposed to practice back in the origin. The same thing applies to meditation. I would rather say it's not meditation, it's sati, practice of sati actually. That was what Buddha said. So the goal of sati is concentration, samadhi, to have a singularity of your thoughts. Now what happens to us is that our singularity is taken off because we are getting distracted. So then sati is a supervisor to help us to get up to concentration. What if that you study without any goal? What is the purpose of that study? You study whatever the environmental sciences and whatever things, and you don't have any goal that I need to achieve that goal. Right? I'm not saying this practice should be a goal-oriented thing, but it should be. Otherwise, you are wasting your thing, right? You are not doing that the way that it was really recommended. So sati is the right attention to have a supervisory role within you. It's not a practice that you do only when you're sitting. Now what happens to many? Or they go to temples, monasteries, rec centers, and then they do that sitting practice, 1 hour, 2 hours, and then they go back to their normal routine and they forget about it because they think, right, whatever they say, the mindfulness is something that they only do for 1 hour. But Buddha said not like that. He said you have to do it at all times, as much as possible. When you are driving, that's one of the best places to practice sati. That might not take you to speed, over the speed limits. Right? Then you're really conscious that I'm driving now. And this zone is 30, it's a school zone. Right? And this is a playground because you're conscious about it. Now what many people do is like, oh, I meditated today just before I'm driving, so I'm happy about my meditation. Forget about the speed zones. Right? That's one thing. What about cooking? One simple thing. So when you are cooking, you only focus on cooking. What about taking a shower? What happens to many people when they take shower? No, when we were kids, we take a very quick shower and then, wipe us very fast. When you're getting older, you take a lot of time in the bathroom. Hey, please. Some people are arguing each other from being outside. We also, if there's only one washroom in the house, they want to share it. It's a big problem. Because when you get older, You're going to think a lot of things while you're taking a shower, which you are not supposed to do. If you're going to take a shower, think about the shower. It could be something like shampoo, conditioner, right? Lotions and stuff, but you're going over that and think about, okay, what happened to me just before this one? What was the argument like? Where I'm going now? What I should do? Then you are not showering, you are not thinking either. You have done nothing actually. So take that practice of sati to everywhere. It helps you. It helps you to see things as they are in an objective aspect. That is what we really want. We are not objective all the time. We are always subjective. Right? That's a very big mistake we make. Now, when we take a look at this hole, we could actually, kind of like navigate or whatever our memories about the previous holes we got to know. Is it like this one? What were the, utilities that we had in that hole? So we can like navigating with that past memories and then to try to see this hole in that context, which makes us really wrong because this is totally a new place. So what happens to us in that thinking is that we lose that objective aspect of the real thing. So we are going away from the reality. To get up to reality, we want to be objective. But at times, we could be subjective. What happens to many when they go shopping? What is mindful, whatever, attentive shopping? Your wife gives you a list of things to buy from superstore, right? And you go with that. Probably, now they have a lot of clearances this time, right now. You get caught with the clearances, not with what you really have, piece of paper. And some people, they leave the shopping mall with things that they really didn't have in the list. Because of why? We are not conscious. The conscious shopping is something come out of practice of sati. Right? So you know what you do. But we don't know what we do all the time. That's our problem. So Buddha says, use the practice of sati, that consciousness, that objective thing all the time. But I know some people might say, no, we want to get spoiled sometime. As if that they are really objective other times. That's the thing. Some people might say, but we don't want to be objective all the time. We need to be subjective and get spoiled with some people and stuff. You have to think about it. How spoiled you want to be. Right? So anyway, these are the 8 Four Noble components of the path. Now, my point was that he took such a long time to get up to this path, which is really, really human thing. Yes, no worry. But people think he was such a very impeccable person to get up to his goal right away. No. There were some, mistakes happen. So, what we learn from that is that if we have made mistakes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're gonna make them the best teachers of our life. Somebody said this statement, we are perfectly imperfect. Have you heard this statement? How many of you know this statement? We are perfectly imperfect. Then who made us to be perfect? Who made us to think about being perfect? That's a good question. That's a theory. That's a theory. So, while we understanding the theories, we really want to see how its practical version goes like in our societies, in ourselves. That makes us think about that these mistakes are really good teachers. So what are the other lessons that you can learn from the Buddha's life? I don't know how many of you have read his life. Probably you might have read a lot about his teachings. But if you learn his life, you could probably learn a lot of how he handles such things by himself. What are the other...
renunciation?
Letting go. That's a very good thing, right? Now let's go to some arguments of letting go, the concept of letting go. Is letting go an easy thing? It's not an easy thing.
It's the hardest.
I mean,
it's the hardest.
it's the hardest thing. It's not like I give a talk about letting go. Something more than. Let's go a little bit deeper about the concept of letting go. Now, actually, things give us a lot of pain. Things that we are really attached to give us a lot of pain. But if we are not attaching too much, attachment is such a simple thing, right? Then it gives us less pain. That's a normal thing, right? If you are too much into any person, if you are too much into anything, that will definitely gives you pain. Because you consider that to be yourself, that to be subjected to you. It definitely gives you that pain. So to minimize the pain of that detachment, it's good to see any moderation in this attachment. Now the point is not that letting go is good, but that there is a concept of moderation in attachment. How many of you have thought about attachment in moderation? Now monks say, oh, no attachment. But they ask people to come and then they will actually do blessings for the marriages. We do the blessings for the marriages. Because not many monks say, probably it's a mistake actually. There are two ways of being a good Buddhist. One is the secular way, the other is the non-secular way. They always talk about the non-secular. People get stuck because many people don't want to be non-secular. Right? Many people don't want to be non-secular. They want to be secular. They want to be secular and be a good person. Actually, Buddha said, you can be a good secular person. Now, in the world, there is a wider concept going on, secular morality. Secular morality. People don't want to relate them to any religion, any philosophy. But they want to be good people. Good is not a monopoly of the Buddha, the Jesus Christ, whoever the people that we talk about in the world. It's simply good, right? That's why I want to relate myself being a secular good person. So now Buddha says there are two groups who want to be good. One person wants to be good in secularity, and the other one is wanting to get up to nirvana or such non-secular things. And then, how do you think that attachment in moderation can work for the secular people? Right? Did Buddha say we all should avoid attachment? What have you known about it? What do you know about the attachment? What do you know about the attachment in moderation if you go a little bit further? Okay, I would give a bit of background about this topic. He said attachment has a little value. But he didn't say attachment has no value. If there is no value in attachment, why people want to go, like so much things, right? But he said, if you are going to encourage an excessive desire, attachment to anything, any person, that will put you in difficulties, right? So if I ask you a question, how do you see that there is an attachment in moderation? Can somebody explain to me in your own versions? Is it a good question? I hope not. I think anybody might have asked from you. Is there an attachment in moderation in Buddhism? Buddhism says, oh, let go of all these attachments, right? It's a good question, very good question.
Is it enough to care but not to suffer?
Enough to care, not to suffer. How do you distinguish
being
that?
attached to something enough to care about it but not to suffer when it's not there.
how do you think that stage of suffering comes?
From excessive.
Excessive point, okay, excessive. Probably kind of a disparity between your caring and what you really want from that person, or how you interpret what you do to that person.
So you're talking about necessity?
I'm sorry?
Necessity? Like you can be attached. Because
You're gonna attach
it's necessary.
as far as your necessity
Yeah,
is needed.
but not to be too attached.
How do you draw the line between like too much attachment and then that necessity?
It's difficult. That's what Buddha had to learn.
Yeah, I'm asking if you know anything about it. I mean, any practical solution, not from the text, but from your own experiences.
It's just probably experience and awareness.
Awareness.
And
I know that these are abstract concepts. Awareness is an abstract. You can't know what is the awareness like. Everyone has the awareness. So how do you graphically, practically make that, stop thing or whatever, point, so that you are not anymore submissive about such things?
Well, you need to be objective about it all.
That's a good point. Being objective about it.
Like I could have an attachment to my friends or family,
Yeah.
but it could be excessive. I try to-
Possessive? Is it possessive too?
Yeah, it could be possessive.
Okay.
And it could be too attached to family and friends.
Okay.
Where it's not good, not healthy, right?
Yeah, I mean, we want to see any healthy attachment in our life, right? Because we attach to our life, we want to live. Those people who want to stop thinking, being attached to their life, they're gonna go high up in a bridge like Manhattan Bridge and stuff, and then gonna commit suicide. If you ask them, no, I have no more any concerns about my life. That's it. So I'm gonna actually make it to an end. Which means we have attachment to ourselves. We want to live. And all the other things come on the top of that thought of living from that point onwards. Which means attachment cannot be a bad thing, in a sense. We want to see where is the limit of my attachment. How I make that to the level that I don't feel going off from the boundaries that I think in our individual lives.
Well, as you're talking about being objective at every point in time about anything.
I don't think it is practical. We can't be objective all the
You
time.
can try, at least you can
Try, but then, yeah.
It makes you get a better sense on how to control.
Yes.
your
I don't think it's like a control, it's like a management, handling of, because we shouldn't control our anything. Something like somebody rejected eating chocolates one day. Of course, what's the brand? Swiss chocolate. And then that long bar. And then in few more days, because he did not wisely take a look at his rejection, he denied eating that chocolate, right? In few more days, he came to see the chocolate somewhere, and then he thought, I'm gonna make it today. And then made 2 chocolates in one day. See, it backfired. Because if you don't look at your sensual desires, attachment at the right time in an appropriate way, you're gonna make a mess. Because they're going to be bottling up inside you. You don't know, but they are bottling up. The problem is, when that comes up, right, it could be a bad time, right? Because when you are very depressed, you're gonna make all these things happen. Anxious, depressed. So the thing is like being objective makes us easy to understand my desire, my attachment, and to the level I should, encourage to make it. What about like healthy attachment? Most of you have spouses, children, right? So you all care them more than the other people, right? That's okay. But you know that one day you're gonna actually kind of like detach from these loved people, temporary and permanent, right? That's being objective, right? But you care for the people that you really have those relatives, relationships. But you know these things can happen, right? Sometimes people break up, Now there are breakup experts as well, right? They advise you how to break up elderly in some parts of the world. And then, so I mean, when you make such things happen, then you know there could be some ends that I can get frustrated, but before that, you're going to be very conscious. This thing could happen at some point. By making yourself into that perspective helps you to stay in the attachment in moderation. How many of you have thought that you're going to temporarily and permanently detaching from your loved ones one day? But it doesn't mean that you have to think all the time. Okay? I mean, even I'm with you, but I'm going to actually one day. It's not the way. I mean, that's being very objective, or objective, I guess. I mean, you have to have a subjective version to stay connected to people, right? You're not going to say these attachment stuff are not really good and they are, anicca, changing, dissatisfaction based, right? Even I say I love you, but you are not mine. You're saying that, but you make them subjective, but you know that things can happen at any moment, right? In a split second, this can happen. That should be in the back of your head, probably in subconsciousness. But not like bringing that up and then making the other person really worried about what you say to that person, right? So I mean, to have that understanding in your subconscious or wherever to make yourself healthy will help you to stay objective. It's kind of a balance about subjectivism and the objectivism stuff.
And meditation helps you do that too, right?
Okay, once again we come to a good point. Yeah, the practice of sati, I would say, helps you to supervise about you. Now a lot of people are not their friends themselves. I should be a friend to mine. How do I separate myself and my consciousness? That's a good thing, right? Right? So there is my inner something, and then there is something I always get distracted. So I want to get friend with me first, and then I know what I'm doing, right? So then that practice helps you to focus many more things, like all your practices, and then helps you stay a little, less painful. Yeah, we can talk about another one thing and then take time in 5 minutes to wrap up the talk. What are the other lessons you have learned? Now we talked about patience, tolerance, how to handle anger, and Buddha made mistakes, letting go. Okay, I not finish up the letting go concept, we just started. Now letting go is a very good concept actually. If you are not letting go, which means you have pain in there. How can you let go in your life as being normal case? What if somebody grabbed your, stuff? You have your own stuff, like gadgets? Probably this might not work. How do you look at letting go in your life? I think the good deal of letting go is about the memories that we have. Now I actually know somebody who is always getting freaked out at people who don't seem to be, compatible with her, interest, value system. So you just put that stop thing, and then she blocked them actually on social media all the time. She's a good blocker actually. Blocks. She finds that this is kind of somebody that who's encouraging things that she doesn't like, just give that stop right away. And one day she was having a discussion with me about the people that she blocked, and she's really happy about them because now they are not anymore coming. And then, but she told me that she's all the time supervising the block list, going into privacy settings. I said, why do you want to go there and check that out? Because they already gone, but we blocked them. What if they come back? She's still having anger towards the blocked people. So the memories gives a lot of pain to many of us, right? If something unpleasant happened to us, I think probably almost all we had some bad experiences. But I think first we have to let go those memories. Because the past is already gone. Right? If there is something good, let's take it out. Otherwise, why we want to actually go back to the past? It's already gone. Now it's like I would wrap up this talk by saying this one. Let's take the good concept, a good concept to talk about this, karma. Now, people who are in the traditional Buddhist countries, they take karma to explain everything in their lives. Everything, almost everything. Are you rich because you did good in the previous lives? You gave, I mean, you actually offered a vehicle to somebody. That's why you have this Mercy and the BMW, the sports cars and stuff. And you give much money to other people. That's why you're having a lot of rich things now. So they're kind of like, visualizing every good single benefit that they have in this life to the past life. And those people who do bad things, they're going to refer them to be future karmic perpetrators. If you kill body, you're going to get hit by a car or something. That's how such people do. I have seen such people in some other parts of the world too. But actually, Buddha used karma in a more inclusive way. Not just to say about the past or the future. He said, take your responsibility, be conscious, so you're going to minimize any bad doings to yourself and to other people. What if you're going to say to somebody, you are a very pretty woman, handsome guy, which itself says the other person next to him is not there. Right? I mean, that explanation has such ends. Right? If you say somebody, you're very handsome because I think you were really good to handsome people in the previous lives because you're handsome now. What if this guy, an ugly guy, I'm not you, I mean. So, I mean, then because you've done something, you've been very mean to people, guys in the previous lives, they're not. And you kind of like, making the cultural karmic violence among people in this life. But Buddha didn't say like that. Buddha said, actually, take karma as a responsibility, and that will help you better focus yourself. Right? Now, that's what I'm trying to say about the past and the future. That's why people are trying to see a secular morality now, the karma in the present time, rather not taking it to the either to the past or to the future. Right? Because can we change the past time? Can we change any moment in our past? Can we change our future? Yes. Yes, we are. But not to the extent that we think. We can plan it, but not to the extent we think. How many of you have been successful about our future, our goals? Not many of us. Because the way we think is not the way the things are happening. Why you worry about such things? If we are using the present moment well, that will itself give us the best past and the best future. Why? Now it's 1:31. Now if we are not spending this moment well, 1:31 becomes a bad moment in the past. We are getting up to 1:32 in a moment. If we are not planning well ahead about the 1:32, but not dwelling in that future, not dwelling in the past, but dwelling in the moment actually. What happens to many is like Buddha said, you can go back to the past, learn the lessons out of it, places where you blundered, screwed up, because you don't never let them happen again, right? And go back to the future, go to the future, plan ahead, but don't dwell in the future, because the future is yet to come. That's why the power of now is coming up now, these days. So if you make this moment to the best of you, the best of your potential, then you're making the best karma. Karma is not a past or a future practice. But why then there are some texts, many texts, Buddhist texts, they talk about the previous and future karma. Okay, I will tell you the reason. The reason was, when the Buddhism was introduced to many countries, now particularly Sri Lanka, Whenever Mahinda came to Sri Lanka after the third convocation, what happened? The Sanggayana, what happened was, he knew that a lot of people, the normal folk, they were not in a position to learn the factual, profound level teachings of the Buddha. Instead of that, he used to teach about the previous karma and the future karma. If you do this, you'll become like this. Because you had done this one, you'll be like this. And that way people got frightened. Oh my goodness. This is such a very, kind of a big thing to us. So they were kind of really careful about what's happening in their life. That's why the karma was given in a different way in many of those traditional the Buddhist countries, which actually misconstrue the original version of karma. Karma is to spend the time to the best of you, taking the responsibility by being less vengeance, and then by being less discriminating and the stuff. You can do your own karma to the best of you. So now see, even the few lessons that we talked about from the Buddha can help us to stay better, in our life. So I would encourage you to take a look at his life more than the teachings. Because when you see how he handled his life situations, how he met people, how he talked to them, how he handled angry, frustrating people, such stories help us to, make ourselves better. Because we are also dealing with impatient people, frustrating people, right? People who are not agreeing to our, similar interests, right? Rather going to the abstract concept, right away. Okay, so that's what I was trying to, talk to you today. So I hope that you learn few, lessons from the Buddha. So now I'm going to wrap it up, the Dhamma talk. Before wrapping up, I would share the good karmas with the departed people and the deities. That's our practice. So may all the good karmas we've been having so far be shared by all the departed people and the deities. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme awakening at the end. Give a sadhu to them. And finally, may all the good karmas we've been having so far help all of us to attain the supreme nibbana at the end. So I'm going to bless you now. Abhivadana siris nichang vadha prachayino chattaro dhamma vadhanti ayuvanno sukhang balam ayurarogya sampatti sangha sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminati saminchatu. Okay, now there is a Dhamma discussion, I think, going to start in a few minutes. So probably you can go to the washroom if you want, and then go to that side of the building. Probably I think that you can actually put your cushions back to the main hall.